Today we'll be working on lesson 316, change to vertex form. But before we start working on the practice sheet, I would like to go over some of the notes with you first. And which is, how can we change from a standard form to a vertex form? We can do that by a concept called completing the square. So before we start changing to vertex form, we need to understand what completing the square means. So if you are given an example like that, x squared minus 6x, and they're asking you to think of a constant, which is c, that would change this into a perfect square, like x plus or minus something to the power 2 would give you x squared minus 6x plus whatever c is. So you need to find c so that this equation is changed into, or this expression is changed into a perfect square. So to do that, you need to look at the b, which is in this case negative 6. And you need to divide that by 2. So negative 6 divided by 2, that would give you a negative 3. After you divide by 2, you need to square that number. When you square negative 3, you're going to get a 9. So that tells me that c in this case is 9. So x squared minus 6x plus 9 will give you a perfect square. Now to know what the number to put on the inside of the parentheses, it's the b over 2. It's the negative 3. So that's why there's a negative over here, 3. Okay? So I want you to try a different example on your own using the same method. So remember, to find c or to do the completing the square, step number 1 is to divide the b by 2. After you divide the b by 2, you have to square it. And that will give you what c is. Okay? So the other example is x squared plus 8x plus c. Think of a number that you can replace c with to give you a perfect square. So the first step is to take the b and divide it by 2. 8 divided by 2 is a 4. When I square 4, I get 16. So remember, the second step is to square it. It means that c is 16. So x squared plus 8x plus 16 would give you a perfect square. Now, to know what to put on the inside, it's the number over here. 8 divided by 2 gave you a 4, a positive 4, so then the number is positive 4. So if you try to FOIL x plus 4 and multiply it by itself, like x plus 4 to the power 2, means x plus 4 times x plus 4. If you try to FOIL it to check if your answer is right, you're going to end up with x squared plus 4x plus 4x plus 16, which is x squared plus 8x plus 16. So as you can see, I got that answer. So this will give me a perfect square. So that's the whole idea of completing the square, is to try to rewrite your expression or your equation into a perfect square. Okay? So now let's see how we can apply this by doing number 1 and number 5 on our practice sheet. Now, since we know how to do completing the square now, we need to use this concept, this skill, to rewrite my standard form x squared plus 6x plus 8 into a vertex form. So remember, you have to write it in the form of x minus h to the power 2 plus k. So as you can see, we have a perfect square over here, but there's a number on the outside. So to get that number, what do we do? Your first step is to group x squared and 6x together, those two together. Leave some room for the c. And then 8 is going to be the number on the outside. So see what you're trying to do? We're trying to apply what we just learned and try to find a c that would go with the x to the second power and 6x to form a perfect square over here. And this is what I need. and then the number on the outside is going to be my k. So, do you remember how to find the c? You divide the b by 2, you get a 3, and then you square it, you get a 9. So then I know I have to put a 9 over here. So then my perfect square is x plus 3 to the power 2. Okay? Now, but remember, this is an expression that's already given to you. Okay? X squared is over here. 6x is over here. 8 is over here. Now, as you can see, you just added a 9, so you cannot change the expression that they gave you. You need to balance that out. How can you cancel what you just added? By subtracting a 9 on the outside. So since you added a 9, you need to balance that out by subtracting 9. So now, 8 minus 9 is a negative 1, and that is my vertex form. X plus 3 to the power 2 minus 1. That's my vertex form. I just changed my standard form to my vertex form. Now to check your answer, go ahead and plug in x squared plus 6x plus 8 in y1 and x plus 3 to the second power minus 1 in y2. And if you graph it and you get the same graph, then your answer is right. Now we're going to do, I want you to pause the video and try to do number 5 on your own. It's the same concept. Now I do hope that you tried on your own. If you did, then, the answer is going to be y equals x minus 7 to the second power minus 40. So if you got the right answer, fast forward to the next part of the lesson. And if you didn't watch the video, watch that part to do this one right. So remember, your first part is to group x squared minus 14x, sorry. And you need to figure out what a constant to put over there to change this into a perfect square. 19 is going to be a number that's going to be pushed on the outside. And that's going to give me my vertex form. Now remember, since you're going to be adding a number over here, you have to subtract it by balancing it out. You cannot change the expression they gave you. So x squared minus 14x plus 19 is something that they gave you. C is going to be something that you're going to add. So you need to balance it out by subtracting it. So to figure out what C is, divide negative 14 by 2, you get a negative 7. Then you need to square that. So negative 7 to the power 2. Remember, when you square it, you're squaring the negative 7. So negative 7 to the power 2, that's going to give you a 49. So you need to add a 49 to make a perfect square. Since you added a 49, you have to subtract a 49 to balance your equation. Now my perfect square is going to be x minus, since we have a negative 7 over here, so it's x minus 7. And 19 minus 49 will give me a negative 30. So that's a negative 30. Sorry about that. Now this is my vertex form. And it's called a vertex form because you can get the vertex from it. My x of the vertex is going to be the opposite of the number on the inside, so that's going to be a 7. And the y of the vertex is going to be the k, so this one over here. Do you remember that from lesson 3-2? Okay. Now, this is how you change to vertex form if a is 1. So far we have been working on questions where a is 1. You see that? Because the number in front of the x squared is 1. And the number in front of the x squared is 1. Now, what if the number in front of the x squared is not 1? So this is what we're going to learn next. So that's our next lesson. For example, if I have 3x to the second plus 6x, and I want you to change this into a perfect square, then you're going to ask yourself, what do you think, what constant should I add to this function, to the standard form? So remember, a has to be 1 for this to work. So you need to factor out the 3. So you will end up only with x to the second power. So remember, this will never work unless a is 1. So you need to factor that coefficient out. So If I factor 3 out, what's going to be left of the 6x is 2x. So now, as you can see, 3x to the second power, or 3 times x to the second power, is 3x to the second power. 3 times 2x is 6x. So I just factored the 3 out. And as you can see, the coefficient of x to the second power now is 1. Remember, you do exactly the same thing that you've been doing. You divide by 2. You divide b by 2. In this case, 2 divided by 2 is 1. Then you square it. 1 squared is equal to 1. It means I know that the c that I have to add over here is 1. So 3x squared plus 2x plus 1 is equal to, remember, to know the c over here, you have to multiply the 3 by the number that you added on the inside, because 3 times x squared is 3x to the second, 3 times 2x is 6x, and 3 times 1 is 3. So then the number that I should add over here is going to be a 3. Now, how can I write this as a perfect square? Don't forget that 3 is on the outside, so you keep it on the outside. X, and it's always the b over 2. The number that you got after dividing b by 2. So 2 divided by 2 is a 1, then the number that should go on the inside is x plus 1 to the second power. So this is how you change into a perfect square. So remember, it's the same steps, but you need to make sure that you factor the 3 out. A has always to be 1 for this to work. So we're going to do a couple of examples like number 3 and number 4, because they're over the same idea. Now, as you can see in number 3, a is not 1. You need to fix that. You have a 7 over here, so you need to factor that out. Remember, you always push the constant that they gave you out, because this will not make it a perfect square. I need to push it out. I need to think of another number that will make it a perfect square. So after factoring 7 out, I will get x to the second power plus 7 times what would give you 28, 4x. You see that? 7 times x to the second is 7x squared. 7 times 4x is 28x. So there you go. I factored 7 out and pushed the 9 outside the parentheses. Now you have to think, whenever you divide the b by 2, 4 divided by 2, I will get a 2. And then you need to square it, so you get a 4. And that will be the number that you need to add on the inside of the parentheses. But remember, by adding 4 on the inside of the parentheses, you actually are adding 28, because 7 times 4 is a 28. So what you need to subtract on the outside is 28 minus 28. Makes sense? Because 7 times 4 is a 28. So it means you add it to the expression that they gave you, a positive 28. To balance that out and make it a 0, you need to subtract a 28. So my perfect square is going to be 7x plus the b over 2. So in this case, it's a 2 to the power 2. And then 9 minus 28 is a negative 19. And that would be my vertex form. It's called a vertex form because you are able to get the vertex out of it. Remember, the x of the vertex is going to be your h, so that's a negative 2. And the y of the vertex is going to be your k, which is negative 19. Now, please go ahead and pause the video and do number 4 on your own. I do hope that you tried, and the answer for number 4 is going to be 2x plus 2 to the power 2 minus 11. Now, if you got the right answer, that's it for you guys. You can go ahead and continue the practice sheet and check the answer key online, or you can pay attention with me and if you got this wrong. Now for the core, that would be it. Number 4 would be the last question that I'm going to be doing on this video. For the pre-AP, please continue the video because there will be some fractions that you need to be aware of. Problems with fractions. So let's see how we can do this one. Since a is different from 1, you need to factor the 2 out. So what's going to be left is x squared plus 4x. And don't forget to push the constant outside the parentheses because that's going to be part of your k. To get the number that need to be added on the inside, you need to divide b by 2. You get a 2. And then you square it, you get a 4. Then I know I have to add a 4 on the inside. Now by adding a 4 on the inside, I actually added an 8 because 2 times 4 is an 8. So you need to balance that out by subtracting an 8 on the outside of the parentheses. Now my perfect square is going to be 2x plus 2 to the power 2. So remember, it's the b divided by 2 minus 11. So the h is negative 2 and the k is negative 11. So my vertex has the coefficients negative 2, negative 11. So that's it for the core. Now as for the pre-AP, please continue watching the video because we're going to do some examples with fractions. So if you look at number 2, you'll see that a is 1. So you don't need to factor anything out. So you need to take and group x squared plus 3x together, and you need to keep the 6 on the outside of the parentheses because that's going to be part of your k. Now you need to take b and divide that by 2. So 3 divided by 2 will give you 3 over 2. I want you to keep it as a fraction. And now you need to square that. So to square 3 over 2, it means you need to square the top. You get 9, and square the bottom, you get 4. So it's 9 over 4. It means what I need to add is 9 over 4. So I need to balance that out by subtracting 9 over 4. So my perfect square is going to be x plus the b over 2, which is 3 over 2 to the power 2 on the outside, and 6 minus 9 over 4 would be my k. So I'm going to review with you how to add and subtract fractions on the side. So how can we do 6 minus 9 over 4? 6 means it's 6 over 1, so you need to multiply it by 4. So 24 over 4 minus 9 over 4 is going to give you 15 over 4. So my k is going to be 15 over 4. And that would be the vertex form for this question. Now I want you to pause the video and try to do number 12 on your own. Now as for number 12, as you can see there, the a is not 1. So we need to factor that out. By factoring 7 out, I'm going to, remember, push the 2 outside, okay? That's going to be a part of your k. Now 7, if I factor 7 out, I'm going to be left with x squared plus 6 over 7x. Because if I try to FOIL the 7 or distribute the 7, 7 times x is going to be 7x to the second power. 7 times 6 over 7x will give you 6x. Let me show you on the side. 7 times 6 over 7. Do you remember cross-canceling in middle school math? The 7 and the 7 will cancel out, so you are left with 6x. And this is what is originally in your equation. Now, to know what to add over here, you need to divide that by 2. So 6 over 7 divided by 2 means you are multiplying by the reciprocal, which will give you 6 times 1 is 6 and 7 times 2 is 14. So then b over 2 in this case is b over 14. And remember, you need to square that. However, if you look closer at this number, you're going to see that you can simplify it. You can divide both of them by 2 and you're going to get 3 over 7. Now this is something that you should have seen from the beginning. Remember cross-canceling? You could have cross-cancelled from the beginning by 2, ended up by 3 over here. So the top, 3 times 1 would be a 3, and 7 times 1 would be a 7. So you can either see it there or here, but it's something that you need to pay attention to and always try to simplify to make the calculation easier. So now after you find the b over 2, you need to square that. So if you square 3 over 7, you're going to get 9 over 49, and that's going to be the number that you're going to add on the inside. Now, by putting 9 over 49 on the inside of the parentheses, you're actually adding what? You're actually adding whatever 7 times 9 over 49 is. Remember cross-canceling? You can cross-cancel 7 and 49, you will end up with a 7 and a 1 over here. So then your final answer would be 9 over 7. This is how much you're actually adding, because when you put 9 over 49 on the inside, you're actually adding 7 times that number. So you need to balance that out by subtracting 9 over 7. So what I'm going to end up with is 7x squared plus 6 over 7x plus 9 over 49. We're going to change this into a perfect square in a minute. And the k is going to be 2 minus 9 over 7. Now my perfect square is going to be 7x plus the b over 2. How much was the b over 2? 3 over 7. All of this to the second power. And 2 minus 9 sevenths would be your k. So let's do this on the side. Now remember, they have to be both to be over 7 for you to be able to subtract the fractions. So 7 times 2 is a 14 minus 9. That would give you 5 over 7. So my k is 5 over 7. And that would be my final answer. Now, if you need more practice on fractions, please check the practice sheet online, and that would be it for today.